You know that moment when you're so tired you can barely stand, and you make one terrible decision that changes your entire life? For Elena Rodriguez, that decision was falling asleep in a chair. Not just any chair. A chair worth more than her mother's life. And when she woke up, the man standing over her wasn't there to save her. He was there to own her. This is a story of how the worst night of her life became the beginning of everything. Stay with me, because what happens next will break your heart and put it back together in ways you never expected. You know, sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. This is a story about that kind of moment, about exhaustion, desperation, and an expensive leather chair that cost more than most people make in a year. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, and on that cold November night in Seattle, she had been awake for 19 hours straight. 3 jobs. That's what it took to keep her head above water. Morning shift at the coffee shop, afternoon cleaning downtown offices, and nights scrubbing floors at the airport. Her knees ached, her hands were cracked and bleeding from industrial cleaner, and her eyes burned so badly she could barely see straight. But Elena kept going, because 3 floors above her tiny studio apartment, in a hospital bed at Seattle General, her mother was dying. Cancer, stage 4, the kind that eats you from inside out, slow and cruel. And the surgery that could save her? $140,000. Half of it due up front before they'd even scheduled the operation. Elena made $12 an hour at the coffee shop, $15 at the cleaning company. Do the math. Even working 80 hours a week, she'd never see that kind of money. Not in time. So that night, at 2:47 in the morning, when Elena reached the executive suite on the 68th floor of the Sterling Tower, she was beyond exhausted. She was broken. The suite belonged to someone named James Sterling. She'd never met him, but she'd heard the stories. Billionaire, CO, a man so obsessed with perfection that he'd fire people for breathing wrong. The kind of man who wore gloves just to shake hands because he couldn't stand to be touched. His office was like a museum, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. Art on the walls worth more than Elena would make in her lifetime. And behind a desk the size of her kitchen sat a chair. Beautiful, soft Italian leather. The kind of chair that probably cost $30,000. Elena knew she shouldn't. The manual explicitly said never sit in client furniture. But her feet were screaming. Her back felt like it might break. And that chair looked so soft, so comfortable, like a cloud wrapped in butter. Just 1 minute, she told herself, just to catch my breath. She sank into it. And, oh, God, it was heaven. The leather was warm, the cushioning perfect. Elena closed her eyes. Just 1 minute. She woke up to something poking her arm. Not a hand, a ruler. Wake up. The voice was deep, cold, and absolutely furious. Elena's eyes shot open, and there he was, James Sterling, 6'3" of controlled rage in a suit that probably cost more than her car. His skin was pale, his dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that made Elena's blood freeze. Gray, like storm clouds, and completely merciless. "I'm so sorry," Elena stammered, trying to scramble out of the chair. "I didn't mean to, I just—" "You fell asleep. In my chair. In my office." Each word was precise, clipped like he was talking to a particularly stupid child. "Do you have any idea how many health codes you just violated?" Elena's brain was still foggy from sleep. Health codes. Contamination. Your skin, your hair, your breath, all over my personal space. James's face was twisted with something between disgust and fury. "Get out. You're fired. Security will escort you from the building." Panic at Elena, like a physical blow. "No. No, please. Mr. Sterling, please don't fire me. I need this job. My mother, she has cancer. She needs surgery, and I need the money. Please. I'll work harder. I'll never sit down again. Everyone has a sob story." James walked around his desk, keeping a careful distance from her, and reached for his phone. "Yours doesn't interest me." Elena did something stupid then. Something desperate. She lunged forward and grabbed his wrist before he could make the call. "Please," she begged. Please just... The world exploded, not with pain or anger, but with electricity. Pure, shocking electricity that shot up Elena's arm and through her entire body. It was like touching a live wire, but instead of hurting, it sent warm tingles everywhere. A pleasant, shocking current that made her gasp and let go instantly. James recoiled like she'd burned him. His whole body jerked backward, so hard his elbow hit the desk. His phone went flying through the air, tumbling end over end, and smashed against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. The screen shattered into 1,000 pieces. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Elena stared at the destroyed phone, her mind reeling from that strange, pleasant shock. James stared at his wrist where she'd touched him, his face twisted in something between shock and wonder. That phone, James said very quietly, his eyes still fixed on his wrist, cost $80,000. Elena's world tilted. 80 what? Custom made. Encrypted. One of a kind. James finally looked up at her, and there was something strange in his gaze now. Something calculating. And you just destroyed it. You're going to pay for it. Every penny. I don't have $80,000. Then you'll work it off. James's voice was cold, but his eyes kept flicking back to his wrist. Starting tonight. Work it off how? I have a chef, 2 housekeepers, and 2 maintenance staff who handle everything in my home, James said, his voice businesslike. I'm going to give them all extended vacation. You're going to replace them. All of them. Elena's mouth fell open. 1 person can't do the work of 5 people. Then you'll work very hard. James pulled out another phone and started typing. You'll arrive at my penthouse every morning at 6 a.m. You'll cook, clean, run errands, and handle every aspect of my household until 6 p.m. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. No. Elena's pride finally kicked in. No, I'm not going to be your servant. I'd rather go to jail. She turned and ran. Out of the office, down the hallway, into the service elevator. She didn't stop running until she was out of the building and on the street, gasping for air. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Her mother's condition had worsened. She needed to come immediately. Elena didn't know it yet, but that night, that moment, that touch had changed everything. Cook County Hospital at 4 a.m. is a special kind of hell. Fluorescent lights that make everyone look half dead. The smell of disinfectant trying to cover up something worse. And the sound. God, that sound. Machines beeping. People crying, life and death happening in every room. Elena ran through those halls like her life depended on it, because her mother's life did. She burst into room 347, and her heart stopped. Doctors and nurses surrounded her mother's bed, moving with urgent purpose. Her mother, Maria, lay unconscious, her face gray, her body too still. What's happening? Elena gasped. What's wrong? Dr. Anderson turned, his face grim. Miss Rodriguez, your mother went into cardiac arrest. We've revived her, but she's critical. We need to perform emergency surgery now if she has any chance of survival. Then do it, Elena cried. Please, just do it. We can't. Dr. Anderson's voice was gentle but firm. Not without payment. The hospital requires at least half the total cost before we can proceed with a procedure this risky. That's $140,000, Miss Rodriguez. We need it now. The floor dropped out from under Elena. $140,000. She made $2,000 a month. If she was lucky, she'd never see that kind of money. Not in time. I don't have it, Elena whispered. Please, there has to be another way. I'm sorry. Without the funds, there's nothing more we can do. That's when they appeared. 2 large men in dark suits. Security guards, but not hospital security. Private. Miss Rodriguez, the first one said, his voice cold and professional. Mr. Sterling requires your presence immediately. No. Elena gestured desperately toward her mother's room. I'm not going anywhere. My mother is dying. She'll die anyway if you don't come with us. Just then, one of the guard's phones rang. He answered, listened, then put it on speaker. James Sterling's voice filled the hallway. Is that the doctor? Dr. Anderson stared at the phone. Yes, this is Dr. Anderson. Who is this? How much does she need? I'm sorry, what? The patient, Maria Rodriguez. How much does she need for surgery? The the total cost is $300,000. We require at least half upfront. Transfer the full amount. Now, I want her in surgery within the hour. Dr. Anderson's mouth fell open. Sir, I don't understand. Who? Just do it. James's voice was sharp, commanding. Then he spoke again, this time directed at Elena. You refuse my offer, Ms. Rodriguez. So the terms have changed. Your mother's medical bills are paid in full, but you now owe me $380,000. At $30 an hour, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, that will take you approximately 2 years to pay off. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. You can't. I already did. You start tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. The line went dead. Dr. Anderson stared at Elena. I don't understand what just happened, but the funds just cleared. Your mother is being prepped for surgery now. She has a chance. A chance. That's all Elena had ever wanted. And the price was 2 years of her life. The next morning, Elena stood outside Sterling Heights, one of the most expensive buildings in Seattle. The penthouse took up the entire top floor. Private elevator. View of the Sound that was so beautiful it hurt to look at. Elena had taken 3 buses to get there. She couldn't afford an Uber. Now she stood in the private lobby, key card in her shaking hand, trying to convince herself she could do this. 2 years. Just 2 years of cooking and cleaning for a control-freak billionaire. Then her mother would be healthy, the debt would be paid, and Elena would be free. She swiped the card. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside, and the doors closed behind her with a soft sound that felt like a trap snapping shut. The penthouse was worse than she'd imagined. Everything was white and chrome and glass. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. The art on the walls was real, obviously worth millions. And it was perfectly, obsessively clean. Not a speck of dust. Not a single item out of place. Even the throw pillows on the couch were arranged at precise angles, like someone had measured them. You're 8 minutes early. Elena jumped and spun around. James stood in a doorway she hadn't noticed, dressed in workout clothes that showed off his athletic build. He had a towel around his neck and a water bottle in his hand. I thought early was better than late, Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. Early is unpredictable. Unpredictable disrupts my schedule. James's gray eyes swept over her, assessing. But I suppose it shows initiative. There's a schedule on the kitchen counter. Follow it exactly. I'll be in my office working. Don't disturb me unless the building is on fire. He disappeared through another door before Elena could respond. Elena found the schedule. It was typed, printed, and laminated. Of course it was. Every minute of her 12-hour day was accounted for. Schedule controlled, just like everything else in James Sterling's life. 6 a.m. Prepare breakfast. Egg white omelet with spinach and tomatoes. No cheese. 1 slice whole grain toast, dry. Black coffee. French press. Exactly 4 minutes brewing time. Fresh orange juice. Squeeze that morning, not from a carton. The list went on for pages. Elena made it through the first day. Barely. The omelet was a disaster. The eggs rubbery and broken. But James ate it anyway, his face unreadable. Tomorrow, he said quietly, watch a video on how to make a proper omelet. YouTube has thousands of tutorials. Pick one and learn. Yes, sir, Elena said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And Miss Rodriguez? James's voice stopped her as she turned to leave. I don't require you to call me sir. James is fine. Elena looked back at him, surprised. You want to call you by your first name? We'll be working closely together for 2 years. Formality seems unnecessary. That's when Elena realized something. This wasn't just about the phone. This wasn't just about the debt. James Sterling had trapped her here for a reason, and she was going to find out why. You ever have someone you can't stop thinking about, even when you want to, even when you should? That's what the next few weeks were like for Elena. Every day, the same routine. Wake up at 4:30 a.m. Take 3 buses across Seattle. Arrive at the penthouse by 6. Cook, clean, organize, serve. James had rules for everything. The books had to be arranged by height and color. The coffee mugs in the break room had to be placed handle out, evenly spaced. Even the pens on his desk had to be aligned parallel to the edges. At first, Elena thought he was just a control freak, a rich man with too much money and too much time on his hands. But then she started noticing other things. The way James never touched anything with his bare hands if he could avoid it. The way he flinched when people got too close. The hand sanitizer he kept everywhere. The disposable gloves he wore to shake hands at business meetings. James Sterling wasn't just particular. He was scared, terrified of contamination, of chaos, of anything he couldn't control. And yet, it started small. Elena would be cleaning the living room, and she'd feel James watching her. She'd turn around, and he'd be standing in the doorway, his hand reaching toward her like he was about to tap her shoulder. But the moment she looked at him, he'd drop his hand and step back. "You missed a spot on the counter," he'd say. Or, "That book is crooked." Or, "Your hair was about to catch on the stove flame." The excuses were getting ridiculous, and Elena was getting confused. Finally, on day 9, she confronted him. "Why do you keep doing that?" Elena was in the kitchen making his afternoon smoothie. James had been hovering for 10 minutes, clearly working up the nerve to something. "Doing what?" James asked, not looking at her. "Getting close to me, reaching for me, then pulling away." Elena put down the blender and crossed her arms. "If you have a problem with my work, just say it. Stop dancing around whatever this is." "I don't have a problem with your work." "Then what's going on?" James was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "When you touched my wrist that night in my office, did you feel anything?" The question caught Elena completely off guard. "Feel anything? You mean besides panic that I just destroyed an $80,000 phone?" "Yes, besides that." James finally looked at her, and his gray eyes were intense, searching. "When your skin touched mine, did you feel anything unusual?" Elena thought back to that moment. The electric shock, the warm tingles that had spread through her whole body. She'd assumed it was just adrenaline. "Fear. Exhaustion. I'm not sure what you mean," Elena said carefully. James studied her face for another moment. Then he held out his hand. "Touch me again." "What?" "Your hand on my wrist, like you did before." James's voice was calm, clinical, like he was proposing a science experiment. "I want to test something." "Test what?" "Just do it. Please." Elena stared at his outstretched hand. This was insane. Her boss, who wore gloves to shake hands with other people, who sanitized everything constantly, who couldn't handle contamination, was asking her to touch him. "You have OCD," Elena said slowly. "You don't let people touch you." "I know." "So why?" "Because I need to know if it happens again." James's voice was tight now, frustrated. "Just touch me, Elena. Please." The use of her first name made something flutter in Elena's chest. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand on his wrist. The effect was immediate. Electricity shot through both of them. That same warm, pleasant shock that made Elena gasp and James's eyes go wide. But this time, James didn't pull away. He stood perfectly still, staring at Elena's hand on his skin, his breathing coming faster. "You feel it?" James whispered. "Yes," Elena breathed. "I feel it." They stood like that for several seconds, hand on wrist, electricity crackling between them, neither one willing to break the connection. Finally, Elena pulled her hand back, her heart pounding. "What is that? Why does that happen?" "I don't know." James was staring at his wrist like it held the secrets of the universe. "With everyone else, when they touch me, I feel contaminated, disgusted, like I need to scrub my skin raw. But with you what?" James looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made Elena's breath catch. "With you, I feel alive." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment in the kitchen, the way James had looked at her, The electricity between them. With you, I feel alive. What did that mean? And why did Elena's heart keep skipping beats when she thought about it? This man had trapped her in a debt she couldn't escape. He was controlling and obsessive and impossible to please. She shouldn't feel anything for him except resentment. But when he looked at her with those vulnerable eyes, with that desperate honesty, Elena felt something shift inside her. The next day, James told her about the fire. It happened during an inspection. The building manager had called to say they were coming that afternoon to check the penthouse. James had gone pale, started pacing, his hands flexing and unflexing at his sides. "The bedroom isn't clean," he'd said, his voice tight with panic. Elena had looked at him confused. "I cleaned it this morning. It's spotless. You don't understand. I had an episode last night. A bad one. The bedroom it's not presentable." Elena had walked to the bedroom and stopped dead. The room looked like a tornado had hit it. The bed destroyed, blankets twisted in half on the floor, books knocked off the nightstand, a broken glass on the floor. Even the curtains were half torn from their rods. This wasn't just messy. This was evidence of someone having a complete breakdown. "What happened?" Elena had whispered. "I had a nightmare," James said from behind her, his voice flat and emotionless, "about the fire." And then he told her everything. He'd been 8 years old, playing with matches in his bedroom because he was reckless and wild and never followed rules. One of the matches had fallen on his bedspread. The fire had spread so fast. His father had come home early, had run into the house to save him and his little sister, Sophia. But then his father had gone back for their kitten. The house had collapsed on him. Sophia had run back toward the house, trying to save their father. The front wall had collapsed on her. James's father had died in the fire. Sophia had died 3 hours later in the hospital. His mother had looked at 8-year-old James like he was a monster, like he'd murdered her family. Then she'd signed over custody to his uncle and disappeared into mental hospitals and treatment centers. James had spent 24 years punishing himself for that fire, for being reckless, for not following the rules. His OCD, his need for control, his inability to be touched. It was all his punishment, his prison. "You were 8 years old," Elena had said, taking his hand and feeling that electric shock run through both of them. "A child. What happened was a tragic accident, but it wasn't your fault. You didn't murder anyone. You don't understand. I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 24 years for something that wasn't your fault." Elena's voice had been firm. "And I understand that living in this perfect prison isn't honoring your father and sister. It's just slowly killing you." James's eyes had been bright with unshed tears. "I can't let go of the control. You won't burn down the world. You'll just start living in it again." That was the moment Elena realized she was falling for him. This broken, complicated, impossible man who trapped her and was now showing her his scars. And that terrified her more than anything. Pause for just 5 seconds. If you're hooked on Elena and James's story, hit that like button and comment, "I'm hooked" below. Here at Threads of Legacy, every story we tell is a thread that connects us all, and your engagement helps us keep weaving. Now, let's see what happens when James faces his biggest fear for Elena. Sunday morning came cool and clear. Elena stood outside Seattle General Hospital at 9 a.m., checking her phone for the 3rd time. James had texted 20 minutes ago. "On my way. Traffic is heavy." She still couldn't believe he was actually coming. James Sterling, germaphobe billionaire with a hospital phobia, voluntarily going into the place he found most disgusting. For her, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb, and James emerged from the back seat. Elena's breath caught. He looked good, really good. He dressed down in dark jeans, a gray sweater that showed off his build, and a leather jacket. But it was his face that made Elena's heart skip. He looked nervous, vulnerable, human. "Hey," James said, stopping a few feet away from her. "Hey yourself." Elena noticed he was carrying a small bag. "What's that?" "Supplies." James opened the bag to reveal hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disposable gloves, and a small spray bottle. "I'm going into a hospital. I need to be prepared." Elena wanted to make fun of him, but the fact that he was doing this at all made her throat tight. "You don't have to do this," Elena said softly. "I know how hard this is for you. I want to do this." James met her eyes. "I want to meet the woman who raised someone strong enough to stand up to me." They made it exactly 17 steps into the hospital before James's breathing got shallow. Elena watched him out of the hand sanitizer dispenser on the wall like it might attack him. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine," James said tightly. He pulled out his own sanitizer and used it liberally, then snapped on a pair of disposable gloves. "Just fine." In the elevator, a nurse accidentally brushed against James's arm. He flinched so hard he nearly hit the wall. Elena reached out and touched his hand, the small patch of skin between his glove and his jacket sleeve. James's eyes met hers, and she saw the panic receding. "You're doing great," Elena whispered. "I'm having a panic attack in an elevator, but you're still here. That's what counts." They made it to Maria Rodriguez's room. Elena's mother was awake for the first time since the surgery, her eyes open and alert. When she saw Elena, her face lit up with a smile that made Elena want to cry. "Baby girl," Maria said, her voice hoarse. "Come here." Elena rushed to her mother's bedside and carefully hugged her. Then Maria's eyes shifted to James, who was standing awkwardly by the door. "And who's this handsome man you brought with you?" Elena felt her face heat. "Mama, this is James. My boss." "Your boss." Maria's eyes sharpened despite her weakened state. "The one who paid my medical bills?" "Yes, ma'am," James said, stepping forward carefully. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Rodriguez." "Is it now?" Maria studied James with an intensity that made Elena nervous. "And how exactly does my daughter's boss end up paying $300,000 in medical bills?" "Mama, I told you I got a new job." "A job that pays $300,000 up front for a girl with no college degree?" Maria's eyes never left James. "That's not a job, baby. That's something else entirely." James, to his credit, didn't flinch. "Your daughter is working off the debt. She's serving as my household manager for 2 years. 2 years of servitude for my medical bills." Maria's voice was flat. "So you bought my daughter." "I didn't buy." "You trapped her in a contract she couldn't refuse because the alternative was letting me die." Maria's voice was getting stronger, fueled by righteous anger. "That's not generosity, Mr. Sterling. That's coercion." The room fell silent. Then James said something that shocked everyone. "You're right." Elena's head whipped around to stare at him. "Your mother is right," James continued, his voice steady but his eyes pained. "I did coerce you. I used your desperation against you to get what I wanted. At the time, I told myself it was just business. But the truth is more complicated than that." "What truth?" Maria asked sharply. James looked at Elena, and something vulnerable passed across his face. "The truth is that your daughter is the only person who's ever touched me without making me feel contaminated. The truth is that I trapped her in this arrangement because I'm selfish and broken, and I want to figure out why she affects me the way she does." He turned back to Maria. "The truth is I'm falling for your daughter, and I don't know how to handle that without trying to control it." Elena forgot how to breathe. Maria stared at James for a long moment. Then she said, "Sit down, Mr. Sterling. Let's talk." What followed was the most intense conversation of Elena's life. Maria grilled James about his OCD, his trauma, why he wasn't in therapy. She told him he was being stupid for punishing himself for something that happened when he was a child. She told him using Elena as a guinea pig to figure out his feelings was selfish and wrong. And then she gave him an ultimatum. "You're going to go to therapy. Real therapy. You're going to work on your issues like a grown man instead of hiding behind your money and your control." Maria pointed at James. "And you're going to release my daughter from this contract immediately." "Mama," Elena protested. "Hush, baby. I'm not done." Maria turned to Elena. "And you? If you want to keep working for this man, that's your choice. But it has to be a choice, not an obligation. You understand me?" Elena nodded, too stunned to speak. Maria looked back at James. "You love my daughter?" "I." James swallowed hard. I think I might. It's complicated. Love is always complicated. But it shouldn't be transactional. So if you want to be with Elena, you court her properly. You date her. You treat her with respect and dignity. And if she chooses you, it's because she wants you, not because she owes you. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Later, in the hospital parking lot, James turned to Elena. Your mother is terrifying, he said. Despite everything, Elena laughed. Yeah, she's something else. She's also right about everything. James took a deep breath. I'm releasing you from contract. Effective immediately. The debt is forgiven. You're free. Elena's heart dropped. What? No, James. The money doesn't matter. It never mattered. James's voice was intense. What matters is that I trapped you in a situation you never chose, and that was wrong. So I'm making it right. But let me finish. James looked at her with those vulnerable gray eyes. I'm releasing you from the contract, but I'm also asking if you consider staying, not as my employee, as something else. Something else. I don't know what to call it yet, but I know that when you're around, my apartment feels like a home instead of a sterile cage. I know that when you touch me, I feel alive for the first time in 24 years. I know that you make me want to be better, to get help, to actually live instead of just existing. Elena's eyes were burning with tears she refused to let fall. You don't have to answer now, James said quickly. Take time. Think about it. But Elena, I need you to know that if you walk away right now, I'll understand. And I'll still make sure your mother gets the best care for the rest of her life. No strings, no debt, just because you deserve it. This man, this broken, complicated, impossible man, was offering her freedom, and all Elena wanted to do was choose him anyway. 3 days. That's how long Elena stayed away from the penthouse. 3 days of thinking, processing, trying to figure out what she wanted. James had been true to his word. He'd sent her a formal release in the contract, signed and notarized. Her debt was forgiven. She was free, and her mother's medical bills continued to be paid, even though Elena no longer worked for James. On the 3rd day, Elena's best friend came over with pizza and wine. Okay, talk to me, Rosa said, flopping onto Elena's ratty couch. You've been radio silent for 3 days. What's going on? Elena told her everything. The contract release, James's confession, her mother's intervention. When she finished, Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Do you love him? I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. It's always complicated. Rosa took a bite of pizza. But here's the real question. Do you want to find out if you love him? Because that's different from knowing for sure. Did Elena want to find out? She thought about James's vulnerable eyes when he talked about the fire, the way he'd face his hospital phobia just to meet her mother, the electricity that sparked between them every time they touched, the way he'd set her free, even though it cost him everything. Yeah, Elena said softly. I think I do. Then what are you waiting for? Elena showed up at Sterling Heights at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, her heart pounding. She used the key card James had never asked her to return and rode the elevator up. The penthouse was dark. No lights, no sound. James! Elena called out. No answer. She walked through the living room and noticed something that made her stop dead. There were dishes in the sink, a coffee mug on the counter, a jacket thrown over a chair instead of hung in the closet. James's perfect order was falling apart. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the floor with his back against the bed, staring at nothing. The room was a mess. Not as bad as after his nightmare, but definitely not the pristine space Elena was used to seeing. James! He looked up, and the surprise on his face was almost comical. Elena, what are you doing here? I came to give you my answer. James stood up slowly, his expression carefully neutral. But first I need to know something. Elena stepped closer. That first night in your office, did you really feel something when we touched? Or was that just a line to trap me? I felt it. James's voice was raw, honest. I've spent my whole life recoiling from human touch. And then you grabbed my wrist and I felt alive. It terrified me. So I trapped you because I'm selfish and I want to understand it. To understand you. And do you understand me? No. But I want to spend however long it takes learning. Elena closed the distance between them until they were standing inches apart. I have conditions, she said firmly. Anything. First, you start therapy. Real therapy. This week. Done. Second, you stop using your OCD as punishment. You work on getting better because you deserve to heal, not because I'm asking you to. Okay. Third, we date like normal people. You take me to dinner. We go to movies. We figure out if this electricity between us is real or just some weird psychological reaction to trauma and desperation. James's lips twitched into almost a smile. Those are fair conditions. And fourth, Elena reached out and took his hand, feeling that familiar shock run through both of them. You let me help you clean up this mess. Because partners don't let partners drown alone. James's eyes went bright with emotion. Partners? If you want to be. Instead of answering with words, James did something that shocked them both. He pulled her close and wrapped his arms around her in a full embrace. Elena gasped. James touching her freely like this, after everything. It still sent electricity through every nerve. I thought this would make me panic. James murmured into her hair. But it doesn't. With you, it doesn't. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other, feeling not just a strange electric shock, but something deeper, something real. Finally, James pulled back slightly to look at her. I need to test something, he said quietly. Test what? A theory about why I can touch you without feeling contaminated. James's thumb traced her jawline, his eyes intense. I think you might be my antidote, the one person who can break through my compulsions. But I need to be sure. How do you test that? James's eyes dropped to her lips. If I can kiss you without recoiling or panicking, I'll know for certain that what I feel for you is stronger than my disorder. Elena's heart was racing so fast she thought it might explode. And if you can't, then we figure out together. But Elena, I need to know. Can I kiss you? Instead of answering, Elena rose up on her toes and closed the distance between them. The moment James's lips touched Elena's, the world stopped. It wasn't just the electricity that sent tingles through every nerve ending. It was the way James kissed her, like she was precious, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. One of his hands cupped her face, the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. And he didn't pull away, didn't panic, didn't recoil. He just kissed her deeper, like he was drowning, and she was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James pressed his forehead against hers. I think I've found my antidote, he whispered. Elena's laugh was shaky, emotional. That was very smooth. I'm serious. You're the cure to everything that's broken in me. I'm not a cure, James. I'm just a person. Elena pulled back to look at him properly. You still need therapy. You still need to work on yourself. I can't fix you. I know, but you make me want to fix myself. That's more than anyone's ever done. They kissed again, slower this time. Sweeter. Then Elena's phone rang. The hospital. Hello, Miss Rodriguez. This is Dr. Anderson. I want to let you know your mother is being released next week. Her recovery has exceeded all our expectations. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. Really? She can come home. Yes. She'll need follow-up care and ongoing monitoring. But the cancer is in remission. Your mother beat it, Miss Rodriguez. After Elena hung up, she turned to James with tears streaming down her face. Mama's coming home. She beat it. She actually beat it. James pulled her into another hug, and Elena felt his chest shake with emotion too. 2 days later, James stood in Elena's tiny apartment looking completely out of place. Your mother is being released today, he said. Where will she stay? Here. Elena looked around at her cramped studio apartment. We'll make it work. What if I have a better idea? James pulled out a key. I own a building downtown. There's a 2-bedroom unit on the 5th floor with a view of the Sound. It's yours. No rent. James, I can't accept. It's not charity. It's me making sure the woman I love and the mother of the woman I love have a safe, comfortable place to recover and heal. James pressed the key into her hand. Please let me do this. Elena looked at the key, then at James's face. So open, so vulnerable, so full of hope. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. I started therapy, by the way. James said, yesterday. First session. How was it? Terrible. Uncomfortable. I hated every second. James smiled. I'm going back next week. I'm proud of you. My therapist wants to meet you eventually. She says you're a significant factor in my progress. Your progress. Apparently, having someone who makes you want to heal is a powerful motivator. James pulled her close. You make me want to heal. Elena, you make me want to be better. Not perfect, just better. Good. Because I don't want perfect. I want real. 1 year later, Elena and James returned to Sterling Tower together. The executive suite on the 68th floor looked the same, except now there was a photo on James's desk. Him and Elena laughing at something off camera, his arms around her waist, her head thrown back in joy. Real, imperfect, beautiful. I still can't believe you kept that chair, Elena said, looking at the Italian leather chair where it all started. Are you kidding? That chair is significant. James grinned and pulled her down into it with him. It's where I found you, where everything changed, where you woke me up with a ruler and threatened to have me arrested. Details. James kissed her softly. Make a wish. Elena closed her eyes and thought about everything that had happened. Her mother's recovery, the debt forgiven, James's therapy, the messy, complicated, beautiful relationship they'd built. I wish for more of this, Elena said simply. More growth, more healing, more love, more of us figuring out life together. That's a good wish, James murmured. I'll help you make it come true. And he did, because love isn't about perfection or control. It's about choosing to grow together, even when it's messy and hard. It's about finding someone who makes you want to heal, not because they fix you, but because they make you believe you're worth fixing. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst day of your life leads you directly to the best thing that ever happened to you. Sometimes exhaustion and desperation and an expensive leather chair are exactly what you need to find your way home. Emotional gratitude. And that's where Elena and James's thread in the tapestry of life leads. From a leather chair and crushing debt to partnership and healing. From isolation to connection. From death to life. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It tells me these stories matter to you. And subscribe to Threads of Legacy, because every week we're weaving together more stories like this one. Stories about people who are broken, lost, desperate, and searching. Stories about the moments that change everything. Drop a comment and tell me, what was your favorite moment in Elena and James's journey? Was it when he paid for her mother's surgery? When he faced his hospital phobia? When they first kissed? I read every comment, and your words inspire the next stories I tell. Most importantly, if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's going through their own fire right now, share this video with them. Because sometimes the threads of legacy we weave aren't just for us. They're for the person who needs to know that broken doesn't mean finished. That the worst moment of your life might be the beginning of your best chapter. Thank you for being part of the Threads of Legacy family. I'll see you in the next story.